So today I'm with Paul Damalie, a serial entrepreneur from Ghana. He will tell us a bit more. So my name is Steve Tawia. Welcome to Talk, Tales of an African CEO. So as I mentioned, we're kickstarting this series of Tales of an African CEO with an outstanding entrepreneur, Paul. Thank you, Paul, for coming.
It's a pleasure, Steve.
Thank you very much. So we're here in Ghana, and the idea is really to discuss all the stories, the challenges, and the opportunities that we see on the African continent, starting with Ghana. So Paul, do you want to tell us a bit more about you?
All right. So I'm a Ghanaian entrepreneur at heart. Mostly the thing that drives me as a person is just curiosity, right? I ask questions on why things behave or function in a certain way, and that curiosity sort of like drives my interest, and that now turns into a passion and then a business. So fundamentally, that's who I am, right? And at every point in time, I have like major thoughts brewing in my mind, and then I go through that process of figuring out how to solve that problem. So today, as we speak, the problem I'm really trying to solve has to do with more or less what we call global fandoms, right? Fandoms, particularly for pop culture, right? They've been shaped in the last decade in a certain way, particularly online followership on Instagram, TikTok, etc. The way I'm thinking about fandoms is what it would look like in the next decade or two globally. And so my latest venture, it's really within that space. It's more of a global company. We're focused on the US first, but definitely grow globally. And that is the main thing I'm doing now. Obviously,
nice.
We will talk more about what
Absolutely.
I have done previously.
Absolutely. In fact, you went to the future already, but I really want you to tell us a bit more about basically how we got to know each other,
Right.
and then what got you to that particular point where we met.
Yes. I need to remember the exact way we connected.
True. I can't remember also, actually.
It would have been a mutual contact introducing us.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Very early on. I just don't remember exactly who.
No. But I mean, we know it's Appruve.
Yes.
We got connected.
Yeah, we
etc.
got connected. Yeah. We had a conversation.
Yeah. But I'm pretty sure I must have seen you before at MEST.
Yes.
For sure, because I was hanging out at MEST and doing different things those days when the entrepreneur in residence was there.
Yes.
But just generally speaking, your background, why tech, why MEST, and then we talk about Appruve and other things after.
All right.
Yeah.
So I think that really comes from my childhood, how I grew up, like how my parents sort of like brought me up. A lot of it. So I was born in Tema, like a coastal city. Relatively, coming from a working class family, exposed to in Tema, fairly good education system. But the way I grew up, I was more of an introvert growing up.
Interesting.
Yeah, very much. When I tell people they don't,
and it's very difficult to know. I would love to know your Myers-Briggs personality type.
I was an introvert just because I was always pondering on things.
Right? You are thoughtful, thinkful.
Thoughtful.
Yes. Deep thinker, kind of.
Exactly. And so the thing that got me thinking all the time as a young person, I always had a project. I was working on something. I was probably building a house for caterpillars I had caught, or bread, or always doing something. So always my life has been on the go where I have a project, and that sort of like made me a bit secluded from friends. I wasn't so social growing up, or I didn't have like the greatest social skills. I think a lot of the reason why I'm more into solving problems comes from there, right? And then an evolution happened. I went to high school, sort of like got exposed, particularly in extracurricular activities like the debate club, history, politics. I did a bit of student politics. Those things sort of like made me come out, saw the importance of, connecting with people, basically understanding society, and what I consider as my true tech entrepreneurship moment was post high school. So during our times, we had like a gap year before you enter university.
Yeah.
So I had almost like 10 months, 11 months for me to really think about what I wanted to do. I had applied to University of Ghana. My main course was agricultural engineering. And during that period I spent at home, my main goal was to learn some form of practical engineering. So I told my dad that, Dad, I actually want to work at my uncle's fitting shop. I was like, over my dead body. My child is not going to do that.
So for our audience, a fitting shop is a mechanical shop that repairs like tires, engines, whatever in Ghana.
So from the disappointment of that, I mean, I was reading the papers one time. At the time, we used to live in Koforidua, which is like in the eastern region of Ghana. And I saw this advert from an insurance firm in Ghana called Unique Insurance. They were looking for sales agents, and I was like, maybe I could try my hand at it. I don't know. The minimum was have an HND. That was the minimum. So I had a senior high school certificate, but I applied.
Okay.
Literally in 2 days, I was called to come for training. So I went there, youngest person over there. I found it so fascinating what they were trying to achieve.
Especially for an introvert.
Exactly.
Sales job for an introvert.
Yes. And so basically I was put, we had this whole training on sales. We're told that insurance is a very difficult product to, sell. No one had to tell me that. I experienced that. There was one time I went into a government office, the fire service. I was 19 then. So, and then, I made a pitch, and then I was asked the question. One of the firemen was like, so you are about 19 years old. I'm like 45 years old, almost 50. You want me to take your advice on finance, like, savings, insurance? Do you think it makes sense? It was a big challenge that was thrown to me at that moment. So
that's how the salespeople learn the best. You need to find your angle.
Exactly. So I had to figure out a strategy. So again, back to that problem solving. So I was like, this is very intriguing, and I'm sure I'm going to face all these challenges as I move along. So at the time, there was these motivational speakers, Albert and Comfort Okran. They used to write books, especially on personal finance and stuff like that. And I was like, well, I need to build some credibility. If I probably get their books, a bunch of them, like 10, 20, I go to an office, I will drop it off. I'm not going to sell first. I'm just going to drop the book with you. I'll ask you to read the first 2-3 pages, and then call me when you feel like you are ready to talk.
Passive.
Exactly. And that was how...
The hook.
Yeah, that was literally... So, like, that whole intrigue, it felt like I needed to conquer. It's a fascination, like, how do I really achieve this goal? Right around that same time, I was quite late in accessing the internet as a young person, right? This was when I had more time to sit in an internet cafe. We didn't have internet at home at the time. And so sitting in an internet cafe and just...
This internet.
Yes, exactly. YouTube was my holy grail. I spent all my time on YouTube. I would watch documentaries on Steve Jobs, Mark Zuckerberg. Silicon Valley fascinated me so much. And so for me, there and then I knew that I needed to change my trajectory. So I went home to tell my dad that
agricultural economics,
I'm not going to do that shit. I have to do something business, finance, entrepreneurship. I really need to do that. And that was for me really the beginning. So I had two choices. Ignore obviously ignore University of Ghana and either choose between Ashesi and Radford University. At the time, Ashesi was a bit expensive. They were not offering scholarships. Radford was set up by this entrepreneur, big Ghanaian entrepreneur based out of the US. You know, he's really trying to set up entrepreneurship, and it was really fascinating. Great thing, I had also been discovering MEST. We're not so far across. And so it was just so perfect.
So Radford was already in East Legon on the Lagos Avenue, already there.
Exactly.
Oh, wow, okay.
Actually, it started off closer to A&C Mall.
Yes,
and
that's then moved to that place. Yeah, so you're closer to MEST than
exactly. I was literally for almost 3 years of my education at Radford. I was working there. There was a point in time people actually thought I was an EIT already, right? EIT is entrepreneurs in training at MEST. And that really was the whole, going for competitions, hackathons, pitching, you know, it really sparked my interest in trying to, you know, solve problems. I started a business with someone who became my co-founder much later, Papa's Pizza. We built their first accounting system.
Ah, nice.
Right? And yeah, that really was the whole journey of me finding myself in tech. After Radford, got into MEST, and then, you know, started a series of companies.
So let's pause there. It seems that from your perspective, if you want to kind of tell the story about entrepreneurs on the continent, you know, what do you think then was one of your characteristic traits that maybe you've seen after in other founders?
I think particularly if you want to like talk about Africans, there are two things. For me, my interest and trajectory into tech came from two things. First, the curiosity, but at a point in time, also necessity. It was almost like, well, at that time also, in my second year, my dad wasn't well. He spent most of his resources on his health. And so what it meant was that I had to, like, I didn't...
Fend for yourself.
Yeah, fend for myself, literally. Yeah. And so I literally did so many things just to figure out how to get money into my... There was one point in time with my business mentor, we're importing isotonic drinks from Malaysia, Singapore. It's called 100 Plus. Yeah.
Okay.
We brought in our first consignment carton. We brought in, we carried packs in the boot of our Jeeps. We'd go to events on university campus.
That means that your sales pitch and training came in very handy.
Exactly, very much so, you know. I didn't know anything about below the line, above the line marketing. We had learned it in school, but I actually learned more of it on the
doing
ground.
The job.
Yeah, doing the job.
Interesting.
Right? And, you know, that really I always had this idea of learning from the best. If I encountered a problem, I'll just go to YouTube and say, okay, so how do you market these products? How do you discover or solve this problem? And so a lot of that, you know, was happening. So
you said curiosity and necessity. Basically, that's something I want to, you know, drill a bit down, because that's something I've seen consistently over the investments we've made, etc., where there's always a tension between building the dream, which is your startup, and then paying the bills.
Yes,
right?
Absolutely.
So how did you transition that into, maybe after, you know, the finishing at Radford? Maybe you studied another company before going to MEST. Now tell us a bit more how that tension managed.
Yes. So honestly, a number of things happened when we did, my friend and I, when we built the accounting system for Papa's Pizza, I realized that we made some good money. I realized that we could actually continue this. Why would we stop at Papa's Pizza? So my job was to go prospect for businesses. So I'm very sure, like, people, especially here in Simon, the businesses there, especially the OG business, they know my face. Like, they just know me.
You've been roaming from going there.
It helped. You know, at the time there were more trees in East Legon. You know, so
don't tell me about it.
I would walk around much easier. You know, and so yes, that drive from that first conquer, right? Again, it was like, oh, I could make money and pay my bills now, but at the same time, I'm curious to see if more people will be interested in using this solution that we've developed. And it just kept on going from there through to post-MEST. In fact, it impacted my interest in school. Not that I was a truant or anything. I was a very excellent academically. I was really excellent. Just that I lost interest in academic work. I was really, when I made up my mind that I was applying for the MEST program, I was just really ready to just get out of school and like enter into the program and it was interesting because at that point in time also I had options. Right. The other option was to join Bank of America Merrill Lynch in London. Oh, wow. They offered, they came to do some pitch, I think a year ago at the University of Ghana. And
was it like the SEO?
They have this program called, there's this group called, so I was in a group called Enactus. Enactus is an entrepreneurship-focused, student-based program. And there's another one more career-focused.
Student of Equal Opportunity, SEO.
Yes, something like that. I forget.
SEO Africa. Anyway. Okay,
exactly. Cool.
Yeah.
And so they had programs and they'll come and pitch to these networks. And I applied just so, I applied.
So what was the job at Bank of America Merrill Lynch?
I was an analyst.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
investment banking?
Yes, investment banking.
Wow.
In between that, I had the opportunity to join EcoBank, largely through an internship program. It was actually a leadership management program they had to bring in leaders into their organization. So basically you do it for some months. And the good thing was that the school had that relationship with EcoBank because it was a big client. And so you'd be placed within EcoBank and then you get to rotate. I joined the IB, I joined EcoBank Retail. So I learned a bit about banking and all of that.
Oh, nice.
Made good relationships there, but I knew that wasn't for me. I just thought that it was the biggest waste of my talent in that.
So, let me understand this. Yeah. So you chose entrepreneurship over a good paying job at EcoBank or London Bank of Merrill Lynch.
Yes, absolutely.
Are you mad?
But that's what my dad told me. I was really hungry.
That's what I'm telling you.
That was a tension at the point in time. That was a really big tension. But I had tasted what it was to again, it comes back that curiosity and the need to conquer, solve this problem. I tasted it and I wanted more. I didn't want to go sit down in an organization, look important,
wear nice suit.
And just not do anything. Really.
By the way, we're wearing black t-shirt today. I think we're going to make it a brand.
Absolutely. You probably have to ask your next guest to be.
Exactly. I think that's going to be the brand now. Black t-shirt to my show. That's it.
Yes. And so for me, I knew that I would be bored out of my mind. I probably would step on the toes of superiors because the way I asked questions just didn't fit within
our culture of deference, respect, and not asking questions that are seemingly too intrusive. Yes.
But I did learn a lot of things there. It's not like it wasn't, I learned how to deal with people. I learned what goes on, the realities of doing business on the continent, right? You could set up systems and think of them hypothetically, but on the ground, there are so many firefighting you are doing there. And I saw that on the first hand experience. Wow. And so those things sort of exposed me. And for me, really, whilst I saw what was going on within the financial system, I've always thought also of myself as someone who would do things on a global level. So being exposed to Silicon Valley, just having MEST next door, which is a step into Silicon Valley.
Yes.
Why would I,
compromise that into taking a cushy job?
Exactly. So those were the things that shaped my trajectory.
From what you said earlier, that also means that your transition from Radford to MEST was very smooth. Did you even apply?
I did apply though. I did apply because so MEST also at the time there's a recommendation system, right?
Yeah.
And so a lot of the companies knew me. I would come and help out. They would go for outreaches on campuses. I would go show up and help. There was a company called Suba that was run by one EIT called Nelson and Eric Hackman. Would go help out and all that. we met a lot of area I'd seen a lot of documentaries, so I'll just go show up, tell them, hey, I'm doing this research, what do you think? So yeah, I built the relationship, and all those people have inputs into the process of getting other EITs in. So it was pretty much straightforward. A lot of them helped, made recommendations, and
nice.
That was what helped the transition. And get
so remind us, that was a 2-year program.
Yes.
Where you go through different different subjects, etc. And then you start building your own company in year 2.
Exactly. So
tell us a bit more in detail so that
the MEST program at the time, basically it's a technology entrepreneurship program funded by the Meltwater organization.
Group, Yon Lysagen.
Funded by Yon Lysagen. And his whole idea is that talent is widely available, but opportunities are scarce.
Correct.
So he believes that he has a commitment towards Africa, and there are very few people who sort of like put their resources.
And that's 15 years ago.
Yes, 15
years ago, yes.
Like where that whole concept of like starting a company of this was just like alien,
Yeah.
It came in, and I was just fascinated. I got into the cohort, which was their first international cohort.
Yes.
So at the time it was a 2-year program. The first international cohort were Nigerians, so EIT from Nigeria. And it was a very interesting class. Obviously, lifetime friends, people I've built companies with. And you go through rotations of studying. You have international, they call fellows, basically. So people, usually graduate students, who are looking for a sabbatical, maybe figure out something to do whilst they're looking for new opportunities, share their experiences. Some of them have been in big tech firms, Silicon Valley or investment banking. And these were people who you also build personal relationships
Absolutely.
with. Which is like, I'm beginning to see how relevant fellows are, because the new startup I'm building, I'm really trying to dig into my network in the States. And these are the people I'm going to and talking with.
They've known you for many years.
Exactly. And so, the MEST program was fascinating, living with all these new people, learning different temperaments, rotating and working with different people on capstone ideas. It was really interesting. That really shaped,
It's funny because you talked very little about IT per se, software, etc. You talk a lot more about people.
Yes.
Can you touch about that also a little bit? Like, what technical skills do you think you've learned?
Yes.
If you haven't, because you already were dabbling, right? What was the thing? Yeah.
I think at MEST, I spent my time really being a product person, but also I spent more time on people, building communities. So once I was in MEST, I started I was the Ghana rep for an international community called Next Bank. And at the time, this was when fintech was just becoming, it was just coming out, and the concept wasn't really solid in Ghana. So if you know me and the industry generally, they'll say, oh, that's the fintech guy. If anything fintech come to,
we know
exactly.
It's Paul.
I built a community around fintech, started organizing meetups. Because I had worked within banking, I would tell these guys, you should come and meet these tech people. They are building software
that could help you. And,
exactly. And really, and MEST would love the idea. And so they gave me, premises for free. They even sponsored some, events and stuff like that. And it really helped, because at the time also, they were looking for, to support the institutions, especially with people, professionals in the industry, so people who had fintech ideas, if you could easily get access to bankers.
Yes.
So I was the guy who built communities. That was the thing I did, and people were the way I would get superpower leverage basically for me. So, but technically, product, I was a really focused
more
product
management.
Person, product, user experience, customer development. Those were the things that I spent a lot more time.
So tell me, why Appruve?
Right. So I need to go back to the MEST program in order to Yeah. So after MEST, you are obliged to set up a company, and you pick who you want to work with after those 2 years of iteration. You pick an idea, you go validate it, you show some traction. And so that is what I did. My co-founder and I was this Nigerian guy called Ayo from LOYSTAR. And then actually my former CTO at Appruve also. So we 3 of us started that company. And we're one of those companies that already hit the ground. LOYSTAR essentially was a way of keeping repeat customers to come to your business. And we targeted particularly food businesses, right? And the way we started out, there was a restaurant right at American House, I forget their name, but we just used punch card system. Because they were not just implementing anything, they didn't have records of their, so we would go there, convince the owner of the business, and say, we will do this job for you. We'll be tracking customers that come. Anytime they pay, we'll keep an issue point. And we showed them, we just printed out some stuff. And the owner liked it. And we told him about what we are planning to do. We'll build a simple app. And if you can pay us like, $30 a month, this is something you could do. We'll train all your waiters and then they'll keep on, So yeah, that was the idea. Early on, we already, even without a product, we had commitments. They paid us and then, so our project was very interesting. And
getting people to pay you early before seeing anything in this continent.
Yeah, it's a very...
it's like a feast.
Yes, it is.
You've managed to do that, honestly, kudos.
Yes, but the experience of having to also sell already, all of those things helped, to be honest. It really helped. My 2 other co-founders were really good technically, so they could deliver on time.
Fast, turnaround times.
Yeah, it was really good. And at the end of the program, you would typically be offered investment. We did the unthinkable. We turned down money.
MEST investment.
Yes.
Oh, wow. They're probably one of the few in that cohort.
Exactly. Exactly. I was telling myself, hey, what are we doing? But we're very confident that this is something that will grow. And that is why we took that decision.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. We were like, we can self-fund ourselves. And maybe when we think it's time to bring in outside funding, then we'll do that.
Wow. You are already thinking quite ahead, because a lot of people will just take the money and do whatever the terms. I just need the money to go.
Yes, definitely. But, and I don't blame that. That is the difficult, because most of us had just come out of university.
Yeah.
You spent 2 years of your life not really working. Granted, MEST to give you a stipend, they give you accommodation, and you are learning in a high impact environment.
Yeah.
But like, this is almost like the first time you're going to the real world. Accommodation, living expenses.
Like,
now you are so it's obvious you have to take it back. I was lucky because I had done all these business. I had some savings. My other co-founders also had some savings, so we could manage for a while. But after 9 months, I was getting mad because we had a lot of expectations. We wanted this thing to really grow fast. But the challenge was that, especially the sector that we're focused on, in the
informal.
Yes. Informal, but not even we have businesses who are like a bit formal, right? And they ain't see more
cash then. Cash is king.
Cash is king. There's a business called Naya. Xenos Yogurt.
Yes.
All these businesses, they were our first customers, right? And so the major challenge that, especially with food businesses, which was the chunk of our, clients at the time, was that waiters who work at restaurants have a high attrition. Now, what that means is that we go in, we close a client, business owner is happy. He would ask us to train the waiters to be taking the records, punching on the app and all of that. But they leave. So if you spend like $30 acquiring a customer, you are going to spend another
60 or 90
trying to train
again.
and training. And look, the owner is like, but I pay you every month. I've called you, come and train these new guys. So it was becoming a challenge, a bottleneck for us to grow really fast, like what we expected. So at the time, we started having this conversation internally and debates, which were not in alignment. I was like, why don't we go to like banks? Yes, we'll have longer cycles, but maybe we'll get more money.
Yeah.
Right. We'll work with them, and they can use that to incentivize their customers to deposit and do other things.
Yeah.
You know, that was my interest. Let's go to the corporates. I have friends in this space. Let's leverage that. Yes, exactly. But we couldn't agree on that, and so
as a team.
Yes, as a team. So finally, I made the call that I was moving on. So this was after about 9-10 months of doing that. I really enjoyed the experience. There was a lot of exposure. Was actually preparation for my other co-founder to come join me later on, who later on joined me at Appruve. Yeah. You know, and yeah, learned a lot. And Appruve came after that.
Yes. So what was the problem that you identified that Appruve was trying to solve? I know a bit of it, but
yes. It had nothing to do with KYC or no. I had done insurance as my first job.
Yes.
So I was very much interested in insurance as a space, how we could digitize it, right? But you see, I had some interesting stories whilst doing insurance. So typically in a week as a salesperson, I would onboard like maybe 10, 15 new clients. But to fully onboard them, you take your boss.
By data.
Yes. You take their data and you send it to the headquarters. We are talking 2012 here.
Oh wow! Yeah.
Right. Right. Things were very manual, so they have to now do their checks, right, and then come back and say,
okay.
They can, And so usually they'll come back to me and I've lost half of those clients, and it will pace me, and they'll say something like, "Oh, management didn't approve KYC. Management didn't have KYC." I was like, "What is that? The KYC? What is that? The KYC?" I went into retail banking. Similar issues actually, KYC. So I had seen the issue of KYC repeatedly and gradually in all the careers that I'd been exposed to, right? And so it always had been brooding in my mind, right? So when I left LOYSTAR, I started doing interviews, basically going to my friends in insurance, banking, just to talk with them about insurance and what the challenges are, and that we are thinking about building something in the insurance space, maybe digitize insurance. That was the original idea. And then once you are talking with all these people, they'll tell you the problem really is the KYC. That is it. And that's how we discovered that KYC is something we could sort of like hone down on, and take that part. So
interesting.
My co-founder then was my colleague who had built the accounting software with back in uni.
Yeah.
And he was excited. He wanted to work and build.
Yeah.
And so we started. It was very fascinating because in those days we had our first meeting. We managed to get an introduction to the passport office. When we went to the passport office, they told us, my co-founder then was a very diminutive guy. He looks like a kid, basically. So we entered the office, had a meeting. We told them that this is what we are doing. We're building a modern infrastructure where anybody online can do verifications. Their guards were up already. They were like, first of all, you guys are so young. You just finished uni. Why don't you go and look for some job? No one will ever give you access to such data. This is national security. This is like, I don't know why children of today, you are too ambitious. So we tried with the DVLA. That was really our biggest headache. We had built a system that was more or less like a plug and play system. We had APIs to expose to people, and we were ready to connect to any data source. So we had a demo app and we could show what we were trying to do. And so we'll take it and show it to them. But a lot of the financial services at the time were like, Ghana, these things, we are not sure it can work, security.
Maybe that was also the time of the 419.
Yes, and mobile money scams going on, social engineering, a lot of
Yahoo
these
boys
things happening. So they were not so trustworthy. But for me, one thing I also learned in the banking system, especially in Ghana, is that there isn't enough appetite for innovation just because people are scared of losing their jobs.
Change management in banking industry.
Exactly.
I know that.
They are so scared. So you and Ghanaians, the way we are is that we'll entertain you. We don't want to be rude. We'll spend time, encourage you, come pitch.
Never anybody would say no.
Exactly.
But that's what it means.
That's what it means. So you will go pitch. You are so excited. You have these leads in your pipeline. You feel like you are making progress. It's not gonna lead anywhere. And that was the Ghana trajectory for the early days of Appruve, to be honest with you.
So what made it crack? What was the crack?
DFS Lab.
What's his name? This guy.
Jake Kando,
Jake,
Dr.
yes,
Jake Kando and
Jake.
Steven.
Yes.
So I got connected to them through someone called Jessica Collateral.
Yeah, Jessica. Yes.
She had come to MEST.
Yeah.
She had heard of
from UK, Kenya.
Yes, Kenya.
Yeah, Jessica. Yeah, I know her very well.
The hub. The
hub. Yeah.
She had come. She was hired by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation to do some research on fintech, and so when she was asked, she asked, "Okay, who is like popular in fintech that I can find?" My name came up, and so we had a meeting, and I sort of like did an interview with her. She and then one of the directors at DFS Lab, what's her name? Marissa something. I forget her name.
Okay, no
yes.
problem. Yeah.
They came and it was fascinating. I took them around, I had done a presentation on SlideShare at the time on LinkedIn, and it was very popular.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, over 1,000 views. And,
like fintech in Ghana or something?
Yeah, fintech and generally the tech ecosystem.
Okay.
There are many like presentations on the tech ecosystem in Ghana. So I was always the go-to guy. And that really helped me because I got a gig actually. I made money consulting for them. They gave me a stipend.
Oh, nice.
And that whole
for
experience.
DFS Lab?
Yes, DFS Lab on behalf of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they were doing something around financial inclusion and the fintech ecosystem, trying to map it out. And so that data was also relevant to DFS Lab because at that time they had just got a grant from Bill Gates, and they were really beginning to look at financial inclusion. Yes. So Jake and Steven, we got introduced through Marissa, and Marissa, basically they were like, look, we have thrown out this challenge to young tech entrepreneurs to solve these major problems. Is there something you're doing? We really appreciate how you helped us, because I had to help them also organize a local event, which I did. You know. And so
these were people's skills talking.
Exactly. You know. And I told them that, oh, well, I have been experimenting on something in insurance, and now it's leading into something more like KYC. And they were fascinated. They asked me to write a 2-pager, put out my ideas, and they invited me to Sri Lanka.
For the DFS Lab?
Yes. Went to the boot camp myself. That's when I first met David Hatchful also.
David.
Yes. He was
OGs.
Yes, exactly. He was working on something around fintech. Before then, I'd known him from afar along, working with Grameen Bank and all of that. Yes. You know, yeah. So,
excellent.
Going to Sri Lanka, it was a really interesting period. And 2-3 days, we had to iterate our ideas, pitch.
It was a hackathon?
Yes, it was a hackathon.
Okay.
Iterate and pitch. That's also where I met Hilda Mora.
Hilda, yeah, Kenya again.
Exactly.
And
so,
wow.
Yeah, when we got there, we had a lot of inputs from Stephen Deng and Jake and the team, but even more so were the cohort.
Within yourselves.
Yes, they were like, look, you've got to do this in Kenya. At the time, we were just thinking Ghana. You've got to bring this to Kenya. You've got to bring this to South Africa. So Stephen and Jake were, look, this thing has to be Pan-African.
Yes,
and that's default. How you would be relevant, really. And so at the time, we had a prototype. We sort of like had an idea of how this thing would look like, but we're hunting for where to access data.
Yes.
And this is where...
The new gold.
Exactly. So we got a grant, eventually got a grant, $50,000. Dr. Jake made a trip to Accra. We told him that these were our core bottlenecks. We are trying to, meet these critical people, but we look like kids. And so he comes from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, old white
all doors open.
It did wonders for us. I'm telling you, it did wonders for us. And then we started getting access to even dummy data, then actual data. Started testing a few things here and there. We built some partnerships with B Systems. Then that was like the default ID system. Then and then internationally we had clients. Most of our clients were international, not even Ghana clients. And so that's how sort of like Appruve sort of like
came up.
And then down the line I met you.
Yes.
I
put a little chip.
Exactly.
As a Nigerian investor.
Yes. You're actually the very first. Well, I had heard of Eric Osiakwan.
Yeah, Eric, yes.
As one of the few Ghanaian angel investors I knew. But when I heard about you and I got to know about you, I was like, wow. I don't really hear of a lot of Ghanaian investors,
We're a bit more now, but it's still a little, And the funny thing is that I can chip in this is, but actually I have a financial background. I traded equity, fixed income, exotic derivatives. I was in fintech. I worked as a consultant in banks, front, middle, back office, retail, wholesale. So I had a very big appetite when I saw the solution. Say, this is going to work.
Absolutely. So that was really the trajectory, and the rest really, as they say, happened.
The rest is history. So wow, this has been the journey. And I was convinced that that digital identification of people. And it can work across so many other industries, not just fintech. Anybody who needs an ID and a trust system could use that and then start doing it. So maybe you can tell us about one or two stories or tales about your experience at Appruve. And how the exit came about. And then we can continue the conversation.
Well, Appruve really evolved. At the time, when we even started, we were known as Inclusive Financial Technologies. That was the name of the holding company, actually. And then major events happened. We met this investor partner at 4DX, Walter, and he was big on us. Like, he introduced me to, he told me that he had invested in Flutterwave and Flutterwave would need this. Like you guys will be a client of theirs. He was really big. He was impressed in our thinking and how we were going about things. So he introduced us to Google, folks at Google, and we got into Google's blockchain accelerator at the time. This was 2018. And that was a big one for us because we went to San Francisco. I met the fund, Phil. Is it Phil? I forget, Phil Knight?
No, that's
Evernote. So I met one of the leading founders of AI and AI research at Google, Peter Novick. We met so many great interesting people in the Valley. We were in Sand Hill Road. Literally, I was like, "Is this the Sand Hill Road?" This looks great. All those things were oh man, we found
your dream, your dream achieved. Exactly. You're in Silicon Valley, you've made the dream now.
Exactly. We're challenged. In my cohort, I had people like Anne Bowen of Starling Bank. We had what's his name? The co-founder of Grab.
Grab. Yes.
It was a very interesting. We are literally the only ones who were starting out. But it was a very interesting group, and we learned a lot and built these networks. And it was just, it gave us belief that we could really do this.
Scale.
We could do this, and so at that point in time, we're all on the highs, but a bunch of things happened. From a co-founder perspective. We, at the time, and so this was my friend who had already worked with in uni, and we had a great working rapport. But a bunch of things happened that we disagreed on, essentially. Particularly had to do with how we use the resources that we had. We had gotten $50K from DFS Lab, access to AWS, Google, all of
the
those
credits,
things.
all
Yes,
the credits.
yes. Yeah, but my co-founder at the time was using those resources for personal reasons. And at the time, my who you know as my CTO now, who was also my co-founder back at LOYSTAR, he discovered the problem, what was going on, and told me. So when
now co-funding problem,
exactly, it was really like an issue. So I mean, the long and short of that story was that we broke up. Luckily, the way we had been set up, it allowed us to sort of like, not almost in a clean way, sort of like separate from him, you know. He took all the assets that we left with him. I had to restart. So at the time, the people today you know as the other two co-founders of Appruve were employees. And it was literally a very difficult moment for me. Like probably one of the most difficult experiences I've had in my life, because there was so much going on in the background. My co-founder was a bit malicious also in that he sent messages to our stakeholders, which appeared like me. And so you have a call from, you know, your investor.
I remember those emails.
You know, you've done this deal and like you are resigning. Why are you resigning? I'm like,
what? I'm not resigning.
No, I didn't send you an email saying I'm resigning. It was so difficult for me.
But can I tell you something?
Yes.
Unfortunately, we as investors, that's one of the things we see time and again. Yeah. That's why when I tell people, we as angel investors and general investors, team, and then product market fit. But the team, the fundamental is,
I agree.
Do you have a shareholders agreement?
Yes.
A founders agreement, whatever it is that sets out the rules, because the day goes south, everybody is in a mess.
Yes. Absolutely.
And so it's a very poignant thing. So yes, high, low.
But I learned a lot from that.
Another people's management skills, I guess.
You know, we lost our deal with 4DX, obviously. Google wasn't so happy what was happening. They were very happy with us generally as a team from Africa, but they were a bit disappointed that was going on. But again, the relationships we built over there were relationships more or less like, I love you guys as people and we will support you.
Yeah, not just the company. Yeah, that's very important.
Yeah. And I think what was so critical was that we had people, investors who believed in us and backed us, irrespective of what happens. So yourself, Zach and his partner, from Startup Bootcamp. You know, they backed us. They were really DFS Lab, backing us, and that was very critical. Came back to Ghana after living in South Africa for almost a year, made some progress over there, and we had to start all over. I told at the time my co-founders were head of engineering and lead designer. I told them that, look, if you join me, if you stick with me for a year as co-founders, right, we would like basically work on this.
Yes.
We had the opportunity. There was a company called IC Securities, one young man over there who really believed in the idea, and they were building some digital products. So they invited us. We worked from their offices for a whole year, just trying to, revamp this whole thing and work for them alone. And that's what really gave us the opportunity to build a path to build up.
Again. Oh, wow.
How we got connected to Smile, it was through DFS Lab. I got introduced. At the time, SmileID was probably the only company doing something ID generally.
That's it.
Right?
That's at the time,
so,
there were you and them.
Yes.
That's it. Independently.
Exactly.
Other ones had their internal systems. But
So Mark, who had heard of this, he said he was so fascinated and like, he wants to talk to this guy. And like, first of all, he looked me up and he was like, this guy is so young. He's so young. So he actually bought a plane ticket to come to Accra, East Legon, and come sit down with me. And it was a very interesting conversation. We literally mapped out the whole future of what identity would look like on the continent in the next decade. you know.
And I saw the SmileID document after.
Exactly. And we had it's funny because I'd met Mark even before, but he didn't know at Erico Siakwan's Angel Fair.
The one in Accra.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
he had attended it a bit.
Maybe
early.
6 or 7, something like that.
You know, and so it was fascinating. We talked about this whole space, and every now and then we'll touch base, and then we started exploring a partnership. At the time, we were literally just doing authentication, check against a database.
Yes.
That's what we're doing. They took it
on
from
the customer side,
yes,
not the business.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
On their end, they were doing more of the facial recognition.
Yes.
So we were like, let's team up because you know facial recognition alone will not work without
the database.
So we teamed up here and there. We tried, explored what could work. Was still very early days, but almost every other quarter, end of the quarter, we'll touch base and have a conversation. And it was interesting because like my co-founders were like, "You're always talking to our competitor." I was like, "Well,
we're complementary.
Yeah.
We have different things that do. The end result is new KYC.
Yes.
But it's just a different angle to it.
Absolutely.
So it's not really competitive, but people from outside will think that it's competition. But truly it's more complementary.
So we bounce off ideas. We'll talk about his experience. Maybe he had raised a round. You know, I'd learned something or two on our end. He was always fascinated that you have so little resources, but you're making all this progress. Very interesting.
That's another trait I know on the continent, that we work with so little.
Exactly.
We work with so little.
Yeah, all of those experiences evolved, and finally, I think you got to a point where, you know, my co-founders are like, you know what, actually, it's good that you've been talking with this guy because I think now we need to actually formalize our relationship in a way. There were a bunch of things happening at that time, but eventually as co-founders, we made a decision that, you know, we would exit, we'll join forces. That's how we thought of it. Join forces and, you know, make a bigger dent in the industry. And that was how basically the story of, you know, the acquisition by Smile.
What I would say is that, thank you. It made me a bit of money. The only exit so far in Ghana that I know of from an angel investor's perspective on the tech startup scene, which is great. I want to use the last part of the conversation really to kind of understand, one, after, you know, Appruve, you spent a bit of time with Smile, you did some work there, and then I know you moved on. If you want to talk about that briefly, and then we can talk about your new projects, what you're working on, etc.
Yes. So I spent about a year with Smile after the acquisition. My job was to lead international expansion. At the time when Smile acquired us, I was doubling down on Francophone Africa. So Cote d'Ivoire, Senegal. I lived in Cote d'Ivoire for a while, Senegal, and building relationships to get access to data. Our first customer in Cote d'Ivoire was the digital bank over there in Cote d'Ivoire. And so we literally, most of my expansion efforts were there. We tried Ethiopia and some few other markets. But also this was just when, you know, the financial crunch was happening. And we needed to start to think about resizing, saving
or
resources,
downsizing,
downsizing and all of those kind of stuff. So I eventually left, and I didn't have anything in mind immediately to do. I was traveling, I was consulting for people. People reach out and say, "Hey, help me figure this out," particularly on acquisitions, which I'm still doing a bit. Like there are startups I'm trying to expand into Ghana. How do we figure out, you know, how to get
get to the market,
or you know, international company I'm coming into. So I did a lot of that. I dabbled a bit in some angel investments here and there as well, but mostly traveling, just, you know, taking a break. And it was through this travel experience, particularly, I went to the African Cup of Nations earlier this year. I've always been passionate about sports. Actively, I play squash. I sail.
Not paddle.
I play paddle too.
The new thing in town, right?
Yes, paddle is more like a combination of squash
And tennis. Yeah,
so
I know.
Exactly.
But it's kind of the new thing that is crazy,
everywhere,
crazy around the world.
crazy.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes. So I had a big interest in going to live events. So that started sort of like making me look into this whole idea of how do we organize and reimagine fandoms around global pop culture, particularly within sports.
Yes.
And at the time, even before I went for the African Cup of Nations, I had a WhatsApp group, and I was just the guy who was helping people get tickets to events. It was growing organically. Someone, I want to go to Formula One. Can you help me get? I want to go to the NBA. I'm going to the States. Can you help me? That's basically what was happening. The group was growing.
Before I forget, don't forget Morocco next year.
Yeah, next year. And we're gonna go there also. And so it got to a point where the group was growing, 300 plus people.
Wow.
I couldn't keep up because I was literally, I took 50 people to Cote d'Ivoire, mostly from Europe and the US, who wanted to see the African Cup of Nations. I organized.
And they must have been happy because that was well organized. Yeah.
Absolutely. You know, and so I was like, I started asking myself, what's the most scalable way of doing this?
Yeah. It's not a tour operator.
Yes.
It could be, but yeah.
Exactly. And that's when, the whole AI craze, OpenAI, AI agent. I was just following as a new technology and space. I was following it. I had obviously at
touch points. Yes.
We did machine learning a lot. That was like we were the ones who were always talking about
machine learning.
How we were leveraging data and images, computer vision.
Yes.
So that transition,
or even really social engineering to figure things out.
Exactly. And so I was in Cote d'Ivoire. I'd met a young lady called Vanessa Serrao. She's Congolese, who has been living in the States for a while. And it was fascinating because she told me about how she works at Spotify and how she led Wrapped. And so if anyone, the annual playlist, that was her project.
Oh, wow.
And,
nice.
Rolled it out to millions and millions of, consumers. And so I would talk to her about what I'm thinking, and she was also traveling in Africa at the time. And she was just like, oh, this is amazing. You could do this. You could do that.
So rebouncing off ideas.
Absolutely. And I just was like, I found my co-founder. So since then, throughout like the latter half of this year, we made some money from the early pilot on WhatsApp. Okay. And then now we are transitioning to build AI agents that will help fans who just want in the States who want to find budget tickets to go to say the Super Bowl. But that's a lot of manual work to do. And if you've used Ticketmaster, you know the hell you're going to deal with.
You're going to go through a lot of things. Whereas if you've built an agent that responds to your question, you do the work for you, give you some options.
Absolutely.
And they can build that up.
Yes. So that is really, so we started like, how can we scale already what we are doing manually? We can use an agent. You could tell me your budget. You could tell the AI agent your budget. And then, it will go do the research. Okay, you have this. We got tickets from here. Do you want us to organize the trip for you? Accommodation, tailgating, anything else around your sporting experience?
Absolutely.
And so you would have a chat basically, and that's like the very early version of the app.
It's funny because I thought about something very similar. Right. Where I was thinking about an AI agent that gives experiences. You know how Airbnb evolved from just booking rooms, now hotels, but it also now is like, let me build you an experience that corresponds to your personal choices for a period of time. So can you even have like an experience agent AI? Let's look at, I want to do a sports event across the world. This is my budget. I can do that experience, can do a bit of tourism, etc. It's like the whole level. I hope nobody picks that idea. Please, it's his.
Well, I mean, it's all
unless you can build it, you have to copyright him. I'm saying it here on Talk.
So I think obviously, as we're speaking, so we've done a lot of over 100 plus, customer interviews with people in the US, China, India, around big sports fandoms, how they, what it is like to be a cricket fan as opposed to an English Premiership fan or NFL
or MMA.
All of that. And we learned a lot. Ultimately, what we are trying to roll out as our very first product is we've built a character around this AI agent. So we have a multi-agent layer, and it's really around a character. So this character,
it's like a sports mascot.
Yes, exactly. It's called RUKA.
RUKA.
Yes. And so you could have a chat with RUKA, actually ask RUKA to organize your World Cup trip in the US next year for you. You could banter with RUKA on like the Man U Liverpool game. RUKA has a personality with something we call empathy mapping. So it learns from your interests, picks up sports data, and builds a character around it. And really for us, we think this is how the future of fandoms would literally work.
Absolutely.
Where you could literally extend that digital character around a certain fandom. And fandoms could be around, let's say, an individual, let's say Cristiano Ronaldo. You can't, obviously he's one person, you can't meet him everywhere, but his AI agent trained to do specific things, have certain kinds of conversations, can be extended to all the fans. So fans could actually experience him, and for us, that's our thesis. How do we reimagine fandoms in such a way that, when you pick Asian pop culture, they're very big.
Especially South Korea,
exactly. K-pop,
crazy.
They have all these characters, Pokemon, and all these,
Even cosmetics. You know that South Korea has the top cosmetic industry in the world with tones, etc. I was discovered that very oddly.
What we've learned really through our interviews is, for example, particularly in the US, how sports engagement is changing. Gen Z is the new or the next sports fan that would spend in the next 2-3 decades. But their engagements, TikTok engagement style, less than 3-4 minutes. They would prefer to watch highlights than
deep 1 hour.
If you don't evolve as a sport to capture that, you will die out. And there's so much research to show how that is happening. So for us, it's about reimagining engagement in such a way around all kinds of fandoms. Sports is our vertical. That is our entry. We think that's the biggest fandom you can think about.
Games.
Yes, exactly.
And online games, etc.
Exactly. And so
I have to stop you there because what I can see is that a lot of people can take cues about the future of what you're doing.
Yes, of course.
What I would like to end this conversation with is, if you look out in the next, I would say 5 years, not too far.
Yes.
Okay. Where do you see, one, the tech ecosystem in Ghana?
All right.
And two, generally in Africa, even though we have some headwinds in terms of reducing capital, etc.
Right.
Maybe really to understand that, what do you see the tech ecosystem in Ghana going, and then more broadly in Africa?
For Ghana, it's two things for me. I feel like the pillars around the ecosystem.
It can be controversial.
Yeah, of course, totally. For example, MEST has changed the model, and so we probably won't have enough raw talent being trained really at a standard that is needed.
A few entities are coming into town.
Trying to do that. But I don't think the density, we have that density now. Because, I mean, I dabbled in some angel investment, but the quality of founders I'm seeing, they are still very early stage and in their learning phase, very early learning phase.
So is it because you think there's too much japa? People are leaving the country, talent is leaving?
Yeah, talent is leaving. We don't have
a structured program to build that talent.
That local talent to stay and explore opportunities. There isn't enough. There is some, but it's not enough.
So the scale of that intentionality around building the deeper tech talent is not there yet.
Yes.
Maybe it was at some point.
It was.
Right?
You go to Osu and there's Impact Hub, and all the other hubs around networks. And East Legon itself was a whole bed. Because you have the University of Ghana here, the software UPSA. So it's a whole ecosystem. When you see hackathons, kids from all those universities are coming. We don't have that now. There isn't enough of that. So that's where my problem is. And
maybe that's where Tema comes in now.
Yeah, so Keta, right? The project, the project Keta. I'm doing at Keta. Yeah. So it's very still early phase. My goal is to acquire land and try to impact the local community there, where we train people who have hands-on skills in building things, right? And
it's funny because I also believe that the future of tech, at least for me in Ghana and globally, generally in Africa, is deeper tech.
Yes.
Engineering mechanics, biomedical, core stuff. Yes. So we're also building that. I can talk about it a bit more.
Yes.
Maybe the future of tech in Africa.
Markets matter. The markets would
be... The size of the market, you mean?
So
the Africa Free Continental Trade Agreement, if it happens, but at least getting sizable market to scale the product.
This for me is two things. Whilst I'm hopeful about Africa, today, I do not think that governments have done a great job on managing economies across board. Like a decade before, we were talking about Africa rising, but we've seen that a lot of that is smokes and mirrors. Like they are not really doing the work to grow the opportunities that exist.
Except for a few countries.
Maybe a few countries, but time will tell also. So choosing your markets matter. Choosing the problems that you solve also matter.
Agreed.
And entrepreneurs in Africa who choose the relevant problems that are not only Africa problems, but global problems would make it. I think you have a big chance of
local.
Yes.
Global, local solution for the global economy.
Absolutely.
That's been a fascinating conversation, Paul. I really appreciate for you taking the time to visit us. This was Tales of an African CEO. Make sure you subscribe and press the alert button so you get the next one. Thank you.
All right.